tell me a little bit about what's going on for you and how I could help. I know you had some questions over email.
Yeah, so I'm kind of in the beginning of my LSAT journey. I just finished sophomore year at college, and I'm planning on going straight through to law school. So I thought that this is the perfect time to kind of start, get my feet wet, and hopefully like progress as much as possible. Especially since I have kind of a part-time internship, but like for the most part, I have a lot of free time to kind of devote to LSAT studying. So I'm a part of your, you know that I'm a part of your course, and I'm doing a lot of work there. Given that I'm planning on taking it in January, but along with that, still I have most of my time over the summer to work on it, and then less time once I become a full-time student again in the fall. So I'm kind of trying to like balance that and figure out a timeline that works. Since it's not like I'm going to be full-time forever, and I really want to maximize the time that I am able to be full-time for LSAT.
Sure. Yeah, you definitely want to do all you can now before school starts again and you get busy. So definitely treat the schedule as a roadmap of what to do, but you don't necessarily have to follow the exact day-by-day breakdown. You could be doing more. You could do more than one day's worth of work in a particular day that you happen to have more time. It's more important for the level of specificity regarding what to do. And so the schedule is showing you basically which articles to read on my site and which LSAT prep test problems to complete out of the exams. Alongside that, you're also using the course lesson videos. And so the schedule and the course follow the exact same order for building the foundation. So let's say you're solving ordering games. You would read the ordering games articles, you would watch the videos on ordering games, then you would do the exact specific ordering games listed in the schedule. So they work hand in hand, side by side.
Yeah, I think that's what I was kind of struggling with, because even when I was seeing the different day by day plans, there's some that had kind of more than others, and I was like, is that supposed to be like intentional? Like there's some that had, like right now I just finished multi-level sequencing, and now I'm on the logic games for that, and I'm kind of seeing like there's some days I have more logic games than others, and I'm like kind of wondering like whether it's like a progression of difficulty in each section. So like with logic games, is it like like progressively getting harder? Like is grouping more difficult than like sequencing, and like is that why there's like more on some days and less on others?
Sure. Yeah. On average, yes. The schedule moves from easy to difficult overall, as well as in each particular category. So ordering games on average are easier than grouping games, and grouping games on average are easier than games that combine elements of both. There's variation, of course, but yeah, in general, the progression overall is meant to work from easy to difficult.
Okay, so you're saying that I can kind of, even though like they have the day by day, can do like take on more some days than other days. Like if it's kind of helpful for me, it's more about like going through the process and like doing it well.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to customize it to your situation, in part because there's no one size fits all. Each student has their own areas of strength and weakness as well. So if you're better at games than somebody else, you might be able to progress through that section of the schedule more quickly. Or you may not need to do as many practice problems of a given type. You may want to save that time for logical reasoning in the future. But with your schedule right now, I would say you might as well do everything you can, since you have the time to build that foundation and make it as solid as possible, so that later when you have school, you can decrease your time devoted to this a little bit and perhaps stay fresh simply by doing full-length timed exams in sections.
Yeah, I think that one of the things I'm struggling with the most is kind of trusting the process, in terms of like I did a lot of research about other like testing centers and like the way that they teach, and a lot of it was like focused on like timing aspect very early, kind of like taking a practice test every single weekend before having the foundational skills. And I think that like kind of working through like problems without like taking the time sections is kind of something that is kind of unfamiliar to me. So it almost feels like kind of hard to trust the process, that like after I learn the foundationals, then I can kind of get familiar with speed. So like I'm not sure if you have any advice, or you've like encountered students with the same problem before.
Sure. And I can definitely appreciate what you're saying. A lot of other test prep providers do recommend timing yourself early, but I found that that's discouraging typically. If you're testing yourself under strictly timed conditions on something that you haven't yet learned, it's probably not going to go very well. And so the results of those early diagnostics that are timed can be really discouraging. And I had that experience myself. But when I slowed down and built the foundation first, then did the timed work, the results were much better because I'd actually given myself the time to dissect and learn the material before testing myself under such strictly timed conditions. I mean, the LSAT is such a heavily timed exam that it's not reasonable for most people to do everything in the time allotted. They actually don't expect you to complete sections on average. But if you learn the patterns and the questions and you learn them in depth, then your odds of success are much higher.
I also had a question about kind of the other kind of books that people use for self-studying, because originally I was planning on self-studying, and then I was reading your blog and kind of realized that I wanted to have more of a pointed approach and more of a systematic and methodical approach to like my studying. So I kind of maximized the time I was using. But I just like with like your short videos and everything, I kind of get things pretty easily through your videos alone. But I'm kind of wondering, like, should I just kind of leave them off to the side as a reference tool, or should I use them more like, I guess, like more systematically and kind of incorporate them into like the study plan? Like, what should I do with these books?
Yeah, it's really about whatever you feel you need. If you need to go in depth on a particular area, by all means, feel free. But if you're saying that the short videos inside my course are getting you what you need, then you may not need to do every single chapter of every single book. I mean, those books altogether are well over 1,000 pages, maybe even 2,000 pages put together. And I know that you have several months to study, but even still, you don't want to do more than is necessary in the foundational stage. You also want to save time for drilling weak areas and doing timed sections and doing full-length exams and reviewing them. So I would recommend, based on what you're telling me, it sounds like treating them more as reference tools would be useful for later if you have a problem with a certain particular question type or idea, concept. Then you might refer to one of those books for the specifics to go in more depth and see what they have to say about it too.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really helpful too. Thank you. I think that was the biggest kind of difficulty. I like had my one plan of how I was going to study, like self-study and everything, and then things kind of really changed. So like that's definitely really helpful. And I guess like probably one of my last questions, like kind of, I'm still in the very start of the journey, so it's kind of difficult to see what like all the other things that I kind of have to learn before I'm able to like just drill problems and kind of do like the whole review process in full. But like when the school year starts, like do you have any advice for kind of like looking ahead for like a full-time student, how to kind of still be able to like dedicate time to the daily plan and then like kind of dedicating your Saturdays to doing it as prep? Because I think by the time I'm a full-time student, I should be at the part of the schedule I'm just kind of doing, like I've done all of the foundational and I'm kind of just going through exams, like 10 sections.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. So when the school year starts, you'll have many more competing obligations. You'll have other classes. You may have other extracurriculars. And so it's a matter of budgeting the time, blocking it off in your schedule to make it happen. Treat it like a 6-credit class. Block off maybe Friday afternoons or Friday mornings or any day that you don't have a lot of class. Block it off in your calendar, weekly recurring, to make sure that it does happen. And be consistent with it. Don't let a week go by without touching this. You don't want to get rusty. You want to keep the momentum going. But also at the same time, acknowledge that you're not going to do as much during the school year as over the summer. So do more now, and then also don't have the same expectations about what's going to happen in the fall.
Right. And also one more thing, in terms of test like registration, like also test registration, this is a logistical question. I have these months until January to kind of study, but also like I have a question about, like I always was kind of unsure because like I was talking to my sister about it and she was like, what if you get to a place where you're ready to take the exam early? Like what do? Do you like continue to study up until January? Or like she was kind of saying like once you have it and you should just take it as soon as possible. So should I just instead just work to the January thing regardless, or should I possibly schedule the exam earlier? I also don't really know where I'm going to be. Like I'm not sure that my school is going to be in session or not. So I guess that also changes things in terms of registering this time.
Sure. Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, if you happen to be ready before January, then sure, go ahead and take it. There's no downside really if you think you're ready. You also don't need to register now though. You don't need to decide now. The deadlines are all posted on LSAC site. So just keep those in mind. If you're considering, let's say, November instead, keep that registration deadline in mind. And as soon as you think that November might be for you, register for it. And then if you're not ready in time, you could postpone to January.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful. This is all that. Those are pretty much. Oh, one more question. How do I integrate like the old master classes into my studying? Like I know towards the end there's more space for that. Like once I get foundational to like look at master classes, but in terms of I know some master classes are kind of in line with like what I'm doing at the moment. So like, do I just kind of watch those in my leisure time, or kind of how can I incorporate those well?
That's a great question. Yeah. So basically, if you're ready for the more advanced material on a certain section, if you want that, then by all means, jump ahead and look at the masterclass after you've watched the foundational videos. So I wouldn't necessarily wait until weeks later to do the logic games masterclass. I would watch all the foundational ones first, then add in the masterclass immediately afterwards. And since you've got a longer timeline and you've got more free time to study this summer, then I would watch it immediately.
Well, those are pretty much all of my questions. Thank you so much, Steve. If you have any advice, I guess for someone who's just starting out, I bought these books like last year, but like I never really dedicated the time to really like get serious about it. So this is really the start of my journey. But like, if you have any advice, I'm always welcome to it. And your blog is super helpful.
Of course, I'm really glad to hear it. Well, I will definitely be sharing much more advice with you in the coming days. So please keep in touch, reach out if you have any questions, watch the orientation videos in the course, come to the next orientation, and we can get more into jumpstarting your prep.
Thank you, Steve.
My pleasure. I'll see you soon, Shanaza. Have a good one. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.